Hello, hello, happy Wednesday. If it's Wednesday around noon, it's the weekly show with me, Irena. Hello, if we haven't met yet. Today I want to talk about object in motion, so to speak. There's a wonderful book that I came across recently called What is Your Clutter Trying to Tell You? And the reason I love it is because I definitely have some clutter. And I know it's more than just making the time to go through it. There are other aspects to it. There are other layers. One thing that always fascinates me, for example, is that my filing cabinets that I have here in my office, it was starting to get really, really full, the one drawer. And I didn't have time to go through it. So I was, continuing to put my file folders in the front, and it got to the point where I couldn't close it all the way, right? And so it was always open a little bit. The other day, I finally was able to make some time, go through it, weed out the stuff that no longer is necessary for me right now and where I am, and recycle it. And now I can close the drawer. But the most interesting thing is that when I'm going in and out of the drawer, when I go to close it, I'm always leaving it open, that same amount that had been filled to the stuff point, that inch or two. And it's another kind of sign to me that when a space gets used to holding a pile of papers or an overstuffed drawer, it's naturally always going to attract more of that, right? So my drawer, I couldn't believe it. It was why isn't that drawer closed? It can close now, but it's still open a little bit. So I have to consciously now say, okay, you have space, you can close. There's a corner in my office as well where for a long time I had a pile of books. I wasn't sure where I could house them, and so they just kind of stayed there. And still that pile, or that corner in my office attracts a pile. Same thing with empty kitchen countertops, right? As soon as I clear off a countertop, get the kitchen looking all sparkly and beautiful, my husband or my kids will come in and they'll be like, oh, let me lay out all my treasures I have that I want to share with you. And they'll put it all over the counter, spread out, and it's I just figured out how to clear that off. So as you jump on, please say hello and let me know where you're viewing from, where you're joining me from. But the main part of today is just knowing how our energy affects the world around us, how the energy of the space we're in affects us, and knowing that anything you do, whatever tiny little action it is, will make a shift and will make a difference. So there's a quote in this book, What Your Clutter is Trying to Tell You by Carrie Richardson, and it goes along the lines of, when it comes to all or nothing, nothing usually wins. So when it comes to all or nothing, nothing usually wins. So for example, the pile of papers I have in my office, I might be thinking to myself, well, I really kind of need half a day to go through that. It's a big mess right now. Hi, Ruth Ann. Great to have you. Happy belated birthday. Holy cannoli. But, we get these piles of paper. You might think, oh, I really need kind of a day to go through that. And I just don't have a day right now. I'm busy. I've got to run, my kids to dance or to the pool or on the next adventure. And I'll get to that later. It's really not a big problem. It's low on the totem pole. It's not a big thing that I have to worry about. But yet it continues to sit there and it continues to draw my attention and think, oh, I need to get to that, right? And I start to feel badly that I haven't gotten to it. So there's all sorts of layers that go to it. And the main reason for me sharing this is because I think this applies to a lot of other areas in our life. When we look at, when it comes to all or nothing, nothing usually wins. You think about that wonderful famous story of the person, the wonderful person walking on the beach early in the morning. They went out to see the sunrise, to hear the peacefulness of the ocean waves crashing on the shore, and they see that the beach is littered with starfish. And they reach down and they start picking up the starfish, and they throw the starfish back into the beautiful ocean. And another person, passerby, comes along and they look at the person throwing the starfish in and they think, oh, you're such a fool. And they say to the person rescuing the starfish, what do you think you're doing? You can't save all of them, right? Of course, right? She's not going to be able to save all of them. There's a whole beach. There's thousands. There's one little her. Yet, as she's throwing them in and this passerby says, what kind of difference do you think you're making? And she says, as she picks up the next starfish and throws it in, I made a difference to that one. Right? That's a famous story. We've heard it a million times. But how does that apply in our life? Because we'll get into places where we think, what can I do? How can I make a difference? I don't have the background in there. And just as another really quick side note, on Netflix right now, wonderful, wonderful series with Bill Moore interviewing Joseph Campbell. Check it out. I just was able to watch the first episode. And in it, Bill Moore asks Joseph Campbell, how would you describe the ego? What would your definition be of the ego? Joseph Campbell, for a moment, he pauses. And it's so interesting to watch because it's such a practical, easily digestible answer. And he said, the ego is when you say, I really want to save a starfish, but there's no way that I can do it. I don't have the skills, or I want to write a book, but, I'm not an English major. I've never written anything before. I don't have a degree in it, and I'll never be able to write as well as, Sarah down the block, or, I really wanted to travel, but I just don't have the time. I'm not a travel agent. I don't know how to plan a trip. So, that's the ego. That's when it starts to limit you. That's when it starts to say, you can only dream this big, right? And it creates a separation between you and possibility, you and the world. So it goes all back to that quote, when it comes to all or nothing, nothing usually wins, right? And I want to put that in there. I want to take that always out because, listen, there's always room for play and dance here in this life, this experience. On our yoga mat, we discover it's important to tone your muscles before you go into the opening. It's important to engage with life. Life isn't just happening to us. We have the ability to dance with it, right? To create harmony. We always have a choice, and we have free will. So, as you go through your day today, what I invite you to do is I invite you to take a moment to pause, to breathe, and to say, okay, when it comes down to all or nothing, in tackling different problems, it could be the paperwork in your office, it could be something larger at hand. What I invite you to do is take a deep breath. Imagine beautiful roots growing from the soles of your feet deep down into the earth. And then a beautiful golden light over the crown of your head, like you've got a little golden sun lighting up, like that little ideal light bulb that can sometimes pop off. And give yourself just a moment to move into a space where you can breathe, a space where it's not as charged with big emotion, but a space where you can gain clarity, a space where you can say, you know what, if I just take 5 minutes today and I, tackle that pile of papers, or if I take 2 minutes today and I send a prayer out for those who need to be uplifted and remember to let them know they're not alone on their journey. If I take 3 minutes today to call a friend and check in, what a difference it can make. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And just to watch that as you go through your day. So if you get a chance, if you found that this has made a shift for you, anything in this video is helpful, please share it with a friend, because the more that we can share the light in this world, the more that we can lift one another's spirits, the better. I hope you have an amazing day. Join me over in my free Facebook group, Yoga with Irena, for more conversation and fun. It's a wonderful, amazing group of people over there lifting each other up. And I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Bye, guys.